But you had the idea that you were going by train. That line from the beautiful and wise poem by Naomi Shihab Nye reminds me of a story about Albert Einstein. Perhaps you've heard it. He was traveling by train after speaking at Princeton University. When the train conductor came along to punch his ticket, Einstein reached into his coat pocket and couldn't find it. He then checked his pants pocket, but it wasn't there either. Next, he opened his briefcase and searched there to no avail, and then he looked on the seat beside him. Still no luck. The conductor said, "Dr. Einstein, I know who you are. We all do. I'm sure you bought a ticket. Please don't worry about it." Hearing this, the great physicist nodded in gratitude, and the conductor moved on down the aisle. But several minutes later, he came back again, walking through the car, and this time he saw Albert Einstein down on his hands and knees, looking under his seat for his missing ticket. The conductor rushed over to the seat and said, Dr. Einstein, please don't worry. I know who you are. It's no problem at all. You don't need a ticket. I'm sure you bought one." And then Dr. Einstein paused, looked up at the conductor and said, "Young man, I too know who I am. What I don't know is where I am going." And isn't that so often the way? I married into a family of Scottish heritage, so I'm very familiar with the saying attributed to Robbie Burns that the best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley, meaning the best laid plans often go awry. As we consider the theme of intentions in the month of January, perhaps setting new goals and directions for ourselves, it's worth reflecting on how we respond when the journey does not go as planned. Many, if not most of us, can look at our lives and notice how often we set out in one direction and end up somewhere else. It happens over the course of a day and the course of a lifetime. It's not that our intentions aren't important or meaningful. It's just that in the fullness of life and the forces of circumstance, they work with our intentions in ways we seldom foresee, no matter how intentional we, intend ourselves to be. If our intention is to be awake, open, and curious, listening for the call of life and where it might lead us, we can learn to move more gracefully through our journeys, releasing our sometimes rigid approach to intention. This approach to the journey can, I believe, lead us to a place of greater compassion, both for ourselves and for others. As we remember the beloved spiritual teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, we might consider how spiritual practice can support us as we work with the theme of intentions. While sitting in meditation, I might set the simplest of intentions, simply to stay present and still for a period of time and to stay focused on my breath. When other thoughts and impulses, other intentions arise during this time, as they so frequently do, I try to simply notice them and let them go, returning my attention to the present moment where there is nothing to do other than sit and breathe. It's amazing how many little intentions can be arising and can be released during even a very short time. With regular practice, this helps me develop the capacity to stay mindfully present in whatever circumstances I find myself, especially circumstances that I find difficult. Full disclosure, I am very much a student at this. Like so many others, and perhaps many of you, I tend to get attached to particular goals, feelings, and experiences, often missing the boat because my willful intention is to stay on the train. As Thich Nhat Hanh wrote in his book, The Art of Power, whatever path you take, If you are attached to the form, you cannot get the happiness you want. If you're committed to only one idea of happiness, you're stuck. The idea of happiness that you have may actually be an obstacle, preventing you and your loved ones from being happy. Thich Nhat Hanh taught mindfulness meditation in the Buddhist tradition, but prayer too, in its many forms, can be helpful in directing us towards sources of strength that are beyond our personal will. In prayer, we acknowledge our own limits, welcoming in other sources of wisdom, however we may define them. This can open up different possibilities for intention, directed less toward personal desires and achievements, and more toward selflessness and love. Also, when seen as a spiritual practice, creative expression in every form teaches us to work skillfully with our intentions, as we are continually dancing between our goals and our hopes for the painting, poem, sermon, or song, and the way the work actually turns out. When we approach life from a spiritual perspective, we are always balancing our intentions with our acceptance, trying to integrate and reconcile the things we can and should endeavor to change with the things that we cannot. Like Einstein on the train, we set off with our intentions in place, but we often lose track of them, or life takes us in a completely unexpected direction. Like it and not, we are always immersed in the creative flow of life, which involves us and includes us, but does not depend on us and certainly cannot be controlled by us. This may seem like bad news for those of us who like to be in control, who like to know where we're going at all times and how it's all going to turn out. Folks like us might tend to want a system to follow, a set of rules or guidelines, a roadmap, if you will. We might create religions and other organizations in such a way that they might clarify those intentions in what we believe is currently the correct way. And this may give us a certain degree of comfort, at least for a time. But when we look at life honestly, we might recognize that whatever intentions we hold will not guarantee that we will get to a particular destination. And if we hold on to them too tightly, if we hold too tightly to whatever form, we might unintentionally do quite a bit of harm. This awareness might give rise to a healthy degree of humility, from which we might be better positioned to offer acceptance and kindness to others, and to care for this world with awe and reverence. One of the things I like best about the story of Einstein on the train is that he actually admits to the conductor that he does not know where he is going. How many of us would do that? Speaking for myself, I can imagine feeling embarrassed that I had forgotten my destination. And I probably would not want to admit that I had lost my ticket. Putting myself in this situation, I can imagine that I would have been flattered to be recognized as the great Dr. Einstein and pleased to be let off the hook for what was, after all, my personal responsibility. I'll talk more about intentions and harmful mistakes and responsibility in next week's sermon. I'd venture to say, though, that none of us would want to be the main character in the story. After all, don't we all wish that we might somehow get to a place where we finally have it all together, always feel safe, never make mistakes, and never lose anything important? I'm sure we all know by now that such a place doesn't exist. In the story, we can imagine the great scientist wanting to know exactly where he is going to, but instead, he finds himself on the floor of that train, grasping for certainty, unsure of his destination. He's honest about that predicament, yet he is sure of himself at the same time. I know who I am. I just don't know where I am going. He is mindfully self-accepting, even though his best laid plans have suddenly gone awry. While I was on my brief sabbatical break, I attended an online talk just last weekend by Dr. Kwame Scruggs, who was teaching a course that I'm taking on spiritual direction. He is a Black American man who holds a PhD in mythology, and he's mentored Black youth in Akron, Ohio for the past 20 years. He uses stories and myths to inspire young people in their journeys, which involve extremely difficult circumstances. One of the stories he told last weekend had to do with a particular hero who unexpectedly encountered great difficulty and had to very reluctantly get off of his horse. Once he finally did so, admitting that he needed help, companions appeared to guide him. In his talk, Dr. Scruggs said that our task is to remind each other of what each of us is here to do, to help each other find the destinations that are right for us, destinations that emerge only out of our own unique gifts and unique path. That is to say, the map within us, which paradoxically is often completely unclear to us. We need our companions in this world, as well as our inner conductors, to guide us forward. It goes without saying that the story about Einstein on the train may be what we call an urban myth. That is, it may or may not be historically factual. The value of myth is not in its literal truth, but rather in its universal meaning. The value of story is to teach us the lessons we need to continually learn and relearn from childhood right through to our dying. It's important to say very clearly as well that life often carries us to places where we had no intention of going, places we would have done anything in our power to avoid. Some of you here today may be in those places. If you are, I pray that you are met along your path with kind companions who will support you as you set the new intentions that are called by your situation. Those intentions may be as simple as getting through this one day, of taking care of one task to the best of your ability, or of giving or receiving care in whatever form it may come. Speaking about her most recent book, Dusk, Night, Dawn, on revival and courage, the writer Anne Lamott passed along this wisdom that had been told to her. The trick in life is not to try harder, but to resist less. This makes sense to me. Not that I do it consistently, mind you. In the same interview, Lamott noted that for years she held the goal, the intention of getting on the New York Times bestseller list, something her father had also intended to do all his life. Her book was on the list for a while, which lifted her up, but then it fell off the list, which brought her down. Pausing and looking at that with deeper wisdom, she realized and said in the interview that, of course, happiness is an inside job, having less to do with those external circumstances than we might think. Life is full of wise teachers, many of whom do not come in the form we might desire. May each of us, in our own way, empty our pockets of the attachments that hold us back, turn toward the guides who can assist us, and offer our mindful and loving presence to one another as we continue our journey together. May it be so. Blessings and Amen.